Good afternoon and welcome to Ask an Expert with our friends from WIPA, Work Incentive Planning and Assistance. This afternoon, Misty, Jenny, and Tammy will help unpack what those words really mean and what that information can help you either as a parent or as a professional moving forward.
Thanks so much, Deb. Thanks everybody for being here today, sharing your Monday with us. Really quickly, I wanted to introduce the three of us before we get going on the PowerPoint presentation. My name is Misty Johnson with Disability Rights Iowa Work Incentive Planning and Assistance Project. I'm one of the Community Work Incentive Coordinators, or CWICs, because we're going to get those acronyms rolling right away today. And then I've been with Disability Rights Iowa under this program just a little over 9 years, but have had about 15 years worth of the work incentive planning and assistance background. And then my two colleagues, I'll let them introduce themselves really quick. Jenny.
I'm Jenny Lyons. I am a CWIC at DRI. I joined the team about a little over a year ago, and I'm based out of Waterloo.
My name is Tammy Crouch. I'm based out of Sioux City, Iowa. I've been with Disability Rights Iowa for 6 years, but I've been a benefits planner much longer than that. So, hello.
So as Deb mentioned, we're the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance crew that covers all of Iowa and 34 counties in Illinois. And we'll be showing you a little more about our coverage area in just a minute. Today, we're going to talk about the basics of work incentives and benefits planning, kind of what it is we do, how to refer to our project, and just a few highlights of our most common work incentives that relate real closely with transition and youth, and not that they can't be used for adults as well, but we just wanted to highlight some of those for you today. So starting us off, I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what WIPA, or Work Incentive Planning and Assistance, even is. We're a grant-funded program through Social Security that provides work incentives, planning and assistance services to folks who receive Social Security disability insurance, SSDI, or supplemental security income, SSI, who want to pursue employment or self-employment. And that doesn't mean they have to be working. That just means work has to be in their radar, right? They could be thinking about work, starting to get that transition plan rolling. Any of those elements of work have to be tied to what they have going on so that we can put together the correct information so that they can make an educated decision on how work may impact those benefits. And as I mentioned, the three of us are working for Disability Rights Iowa. We also do advocacy underneath that DRI umbrella, but our grant is specifically from Social Security. We aren't Social Security, and we have to remind people that a lot, but our project just helps navigate what it looks like when somebody is thinking about work and they have those benefits and how the impact might be on those benefits and other supports. And we're going to talk about more of that as we go throughout our presentation over the next hour. So a little bit about WIPA eligibility. Beneficiaries can be as young as age 14. All the way up to full retirement age. As that kind of creeps up even higher, it used to cut off at about 65, and now we just go all the way up to full retirement age, which right now is about 66 and 8 months up to 67. Again, we're not retirement experts, that's for sure, but we do have at least a little bit of information about that piece so we can let folks know what's going to happen when they hit that age. And the other piece of our eligibility is they have to have that disability determination per the Social Security definition. And that means that their disability or impairment is going to last at least 12 months or result in death. So the line is very clear about what Social Security says disability means, and those are the regulations that we go by, and Social Security will go by when they're looking at that. And then also in tandem with that, that person that we're going to be serving already has to be receiving or approved to receive that SSI or SSDI benefit. And underneath that Title II benefit, you'll hear us kind of interchanging that, the Title II or SSDI, that could have another benefit, which is a child disability benefit or a widower's disability benefit as well. You'll see the acronyms on the slides. And like I mentioned, the person has to be looking for work, already working, or just even considering work. And then to touch a little bit on our referral process, we really recommend that not only agencies or different service entities reach out to the Ticket to Work helpline first, but we do that for beneficiaries, parents, guardians as well. And that is because they kind of help us with the triage piece, right? They are able to collect demographic information. They can look at some of the Social Security screens to see whether or not that person actually is receiving or approved to receive benefits and whether or not their ticket to work is assigned. So that's a big help to us as we're a small but mighty crew that covers a lot of area. So that is super helpful for us to have folks call the Ticket to Work helpline first. Most of the time, they may even be able to answer super basic benefit questions, but a lot of the times they're just going to collect the demographic information and then send that referral directly to us. And we get emails every single day that has referrals, and then each one of us takes that referral and goes from there. One side note to that is the Ticket to Work helpline changed vendors about a year or so ago, and they're still having some, we'll call it growing pains. So right now, we would really appreciate it if you just reach out to us directly. Our contact information will be at the end of this presentation. But the reason we say that is because we don't want you to have to wait on hold for 2 hours or, wait for a call back. If we can connect with you sooner, the better. This kind of information is very timely, and we understand that. So if you're feeling like the Ticket to Work helpline isn't getting you the answers right away, or you just don't want to risk that wait time, please reach out to us. And I kind of touched a little bit on what that even looks like as far as, the step one, when you reach out to that Ticket to Work helpline, they can verify whether or not you're receiving benefits, kind of gauge where you're at in that employment process. And then, as I mentioned, get that referral sent off to us. There is no wait list or anything for WIPA services, and our services are totally free. The other thing I wanted to make sure and share with you guys today is our coverage area. I mentioned that the three of us cover all of Iowa. Jenny, as she mentioned, is based out of Waterloo, and Tammy is over in Sioux City. I am up by Clear Lake, Mason City. So we have the whole state covered. And then you'll see also in Illinois where the blue dot is, or are, all the blue dots, that's our coverage area as well, those Northwest 34 counties. Okay, so getting into it a little bit further, those disability benefit programs that I mentioned, the Social Security Disability Insurance, the SSDI, is how you'll usually hear people refer to the Title II benefits. But like I mentioned, you can also receive that benefit under the CDB, or Childhood Disability Benefit, which really means that you would have a parent who is either also disabled, deceased, or retired, that a person pulls off that benefit if they're before age 22, if they have the disability before age 22. And the other piece of that is the Disabled Widow or Widower Benefit, or DWB is that acronym we have on the screen. The other disability benefit program is the Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. And of course, that's more needs-based. They're going to look at resources, assets, and income to determine if a person is eligible for that particular program. So somebody can receive either of those, or they can receive both SSDI and SSI benefits, and we call those concurrent disability beneficiaries. So to kind of break it down a little further, and as we're getting into this, you're probably going to be seeing why it's so important for us to know which one of these programs somebody is on. And that's because it's two totally separate programs. On the Title II sides of things, that is a program based upon insured status. So you may hear people say, if you have enough work credits, you can get SSDI programs if you have a disability. And that would be based off of your earnings and the credits that you've built over so many quarters in your work history career. And then, like I mentioned, there's the three forms, the SSDI, CDB, and DWB that comes underneath that program. In SSDI, or the Title II benefits, comes with Medicare coverage or the federal health insurance. And that amount that a person can receive really can vary because, again, it's based on how much they were earning at the time of disability in the few quarters before that. Depending on when it happened, it could be anywhere up to 10 years worth of income that Social Security is looking at. Where on the other side of the program, the Title 16 or supplemental security income, that pot of money is federally funded dollars. So that program is based on financial eligibility and really is what we would call needs-based, right? Because they look at resources and assets and income and all of that kind of stuff for the person with a disability to see whether or not that they are eligible. That particular program comes with the state health insurance and the Medicaid coverage for Iowa. And then on that side of things, there is a full benefit amount or a max that somebody can receive that is set for everyone. Although those both programs, nobody really, how do I want to say this? There's no identical situation by any means. Every single person is very individualized. Even if two people receive SSI, that doesn't mean that they receive the same amount or have the same kind of Medicaid going on, all different moving parts in there. So just know that they're definitely two separate programs and somebody can receive both of them. And again, this is why it's so important that when we start working with somebody, we figure out which program that they're even receiving benefits from, because there's nothing worse than sitting there and talking to somebody for an hour and giving them all this SSI information. And then in the conversation, you find out, oh no, they have SSDI. So then you have to say, forget everything I just told you. And let's talk about SSDI. So, again, just to break it down a little bit more, is the SSI piece of it is needs-based. That's why all the resources and income are very monitored by SSI, or excuse me, by Social Security, as well as Medicaid, because under that SSI piece, there's a $2,000 resource and asset limit this year that kind of has to be monitored to see if your eligibility stays the same. Whereas SSDI benefits does not have a resource and asset limit. So that isn't monitored as much on that end of things. It's more about work and how much somebody is earning to stay eligible for that benefit. And how we do that is that we would verify those benefits with several different entities, right? We start with Social Security. We may have to tap into DHS or Medicaid to verify what that looks like. And when we talk to Social Security specifically, we're going to ask them for what we call a benefits planning query, or BPQY. And really, a BPQY is a snapshot in time. It will show us the type of benefit that person is on, their entitlement date, earnings. We used to get earnings on the record by year, but now that's another release. We can still get that information, but it may not be on the benefit planning query that we request right off the bat. It also will tell us the Medicare, or excuse me, medical coverage that they have. If they have the Medicare piece on there, that will say yes or no. It will also say if they're Medicaid eligible on a piece of it. One thing I would side note on this is they are not always accurate because they are just a snapshot in time. if somebody has, let's say, a work review pending, or maybe they haven't submitted earnings for a while, this could be a little off. So that's part of what we do, is while we're investigating right there at the beginning and have those conversations with that beneficiary, these are the kind of questions that we're going to be asking so that we know when we get that BPQI, what to compare it to make sure everything is looking good for somebody before we put together a report to tell them how the impact of earnings is going to be for them. And again, this is so important because, as I mentioned, each Social Security program has a different set of rules as to how those earnings affect your particular benefit. And we want that opportunity to investigate and to cross-check what Social Security has on your file. And definitely, we want to make sure it's accurate. That's how, mistakes happen, papers get lost, all kinds of different scenarios can happen. So we want to make sure that we have all the correct, current, accurate information to give you the best picture so that you can make an educated decision on what you're going to do for work, whether that's start a new job, get an increase at your work, maybe bump up on your hours, start a self-employment venture. All of those kinds of things are what we are trying to help you figure out. And then, as far as work incentives themselves, Social Security has a lot of work incentives that allow for individuals who receive either SSI or SSDI, ability to work and earn more money and still have their benefits rolling and their health insurance as well. And we're going to talk about a few of those today. So just to touch on the SSDI work incentives, and there's a few that we're going to highlight today, but we won't deep dive into many of these just for, time purposes today. But everything from the trial work period, extended period of eligibility, an IRWI, a PASS, or a plan for achieving self-support, a subsidy, expedited reinstatement, all of those kinds of things are work incentives that work with the SSDI program or the Title II programs. And that also could mean for the child disability benefit as well. Where on the other side of things, SSI has work incentives as well. You'll see a few that are the same across the board. There's a basic earned income calculation, which is the top one for SSI. And we're going to show you a little bit about that today. Not too much math on a Monday, I promise. Impaired work related work expense, or an IRWI, is another really powerful work incentive. The plan for achieving self-support, or a PASS, the student earned income exclusion, 1619A and B, a blind work expense, and again, expedited reinstatement. We're going to touch just on a couple of these as well today. And again, just as a highlight, not as a deep dive. If you want more information about anything we're talking about today, feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, our contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So let's talk some math. You're welcome for a Monday morning. So part of that SSI piece is the earned income exclusion. And here's just a basic example using 2022 numbers. So if somebody's earning about $1,000 gross earnings, and keep in mind, SSI looks at the money when you actually receive that check in the mail or in your bank. What they do is they first give you a general exclusion of $20. Then they give you an earned income exclusion because you're working of a $65. Then they divide that remainder in half by 2. So in this particular scenario, they're really only counting $457.50. That's the piece of that $1,000 gross income Social Security is looking at when they will adjust an SSI check. So again, this is 2022 numbers. The full benefit rate for this year is $841. So that countable earnings I mentioned, the $457.50, is what will reduce that SSI benefit. And that means that this person would get now a $383.50 new SSI check, check, and they'd still have their gross earnings of $1,000. So their total monthly gross earnings would be $1,383.50. And a lot of times it really takes us to sit down and pull out a paper and write it out in black and white to show someone how they're coming out ahead with SSI. Because a lot of times with SSI, all the person hears is that they're going to lose their SSI, right? And we want to reassure folks that there's some transition time in there. It's just not going to happen automatically. That if you're starting at an earnings level that's like this, $1,000, let's say, you have a ways to go before that would put you at what they call a break-even point or zero benefit amount from SSI. And a lot of times, again, we just have to sit down and punch in the numbers to show somebody how they will always come out ahead when somebody works and has SSI benefits. So I wanted to touch a little bit on the Medicaid buy-in for Iowa, which is called the Medicaid for Employed People with Disabilities, or MEPD. And really, this is just another way for somebody to be able to get into the Medicaid world when they're earning more money, or maybe even have more resources and assets. So some of that eligibility criteria is listed here, which means they still have to have that stamp of disabled or have that impairment according to Social Security's rules. They have to have some kind of work earnings from employment. They have to be under age 65, and they still have to meet income and resource requirements, although that's a lot higher than regular SSI requirement. Remember I said SSI has that $2,000 resource and asset limit for MEPD in Iowa. That is that is $12,000 for an individual, or $13,000 for a couple. So you can see how it's really impactful to be able to have more earnings than, you know, a usual SSI benefit with Medicaid is required. All of the coverage is still the same as regular Medicaid or Title 19, still administered by DHS. If you have a waiver, it still falls in underneath that, all that kind of thing. The other thing I would mention is that sometimes, depending on your earnings level, you may have to pay a premium, because the income guidelines for the MEPD, or Medicaid for employed persons with disabilities in Iowa right now, you have to earn under 250 percentile, which is about $2,600 a month, roughly. So if somebody's at that earning, you know, hitting up at that earning level, they may have to have a premium for the month, depending on household income, but it really varies from person to person. So real quick, before I hand it over to Tammy, one thing I did want to mention is SSDI under age 18 looks a little different for folks, because a lot of times, most of the people who are under age 18 are on SSI, not SSDI. So really, again, it kind of goes back to, we have to look at and see what benefit that they are on, because like I mentioned, if they do have SSDI, they may have that child disability benefit, which is where one of their parents or an insured worker has retired, receives disability benefits, has passed away. And even then, it could be just an auxiliary benefit and not a disability benefit. So those are other things that we have to kind of check out as we're doing the investigative piece of our work. And one more thing about that age 18 piece, if somebody is receiving SSI before they turn age 18, you know, Social Security should automatically make a decision if they want to keep going with SSI over, you know, once they turn 18. It should happen before they turn 19. But just keep in mind that in Iowa, one of the last statistics we looked at, if about 600 students go through that redetermination process every single year, and about, you know, 67 or so percent, they don't even meet the adult criteria. And the reason for that is 17 and under, they're looking more at academics or how somebody is performing next to their peers, right? Where 18 and over is all about work. They're wanting to make sure that those disability or impairment is still a barrier to employment. And that doesn't mean that they can't work at all. That just means an earning level of a substantial gainful amount, which Tammy might talk about here in a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to her.
Yeah, so just to kind of continue with the age 18 redetermination or when to apply for benefits. You know, the best time, of course, is in the month that someone turns 18 years old. Remember that they're looking at how that disability creates a barrier to full employment. So full employment is designated by Social Security as working to substantial gainful activity level. That's kind of the magic number for SSDI benefits or for all disability determination. They're looking to see if that individual is earning above that amount. And if they're earning more than, for this year, $1,350, next year, $1,470, then Social Security would then determine that that person is making substantial gainful activity level wages and would not meet the criteria for disability benefits. And a reminder just that the beneficiary needs to apply for each benefit separately, so that it's not a one-size-fits-all application. Someone has to apply for both SSI and SSDI separately. So next slide, please. Another great benefit, a work incentive that's tied to disability benefits, is what we call a student earned income exclusion. Basically what this is if a beneficiary is under age 22 and they're attending school, and you can see what the breakdown here is on the slide, then they're allowed to exclude up to $2,040 per month or $8,230 per year, and that SSI is not reduced in 2022. And you can see what the 2023 numbers are there. So basically when they're going to school and working, it's a way that beneficiary can keep that full SSI benefit rate, not have it be reduced because of the fact that they're in school and also working. Next slide, please. Another great benefit that we love to use is called Plan for Achieving Self-Support, or PASS plan. In a nutshell, how this PASS plan works is the beneficiary is asking Social Security to invest in them by allowing them to keep a full benefit rate in order to save for a specific goal. And the trade-off is when the PASS plan is completed, that person reduces or eliminates their need for their disability benefit. So facts about this is someone has to begin at the age of, or may begin at the age of 18 or 15. They don't have to begin. Already receiving SSI or must meet eligibility requirements, must have income resources to set aside, so they have to be working, or if they're receiving SSDI and SSI, they'd be kind of a natural fit for them. An attainable work or vocational goal, and must be financially feasible to set aside or save income or resources. A good example of what we use a PASS plan for, I would say probably college and cars are what we would normally use a PASS plan for. But there's a wide variety of ways that PASS plan could be used. Could be used to fund supported employment services or items for capital for a business. That works great for that match for vocational rehabilitation. If someone were going for self-employment and voc rehab was helping them, then they have that kind of match that they need. That PASS plan can be used as that match. Educational and training expenses, attendant care, child care, equipment or tools, uniforms or special clothing. There's no really limitation that we could use it for, as long as it meets the criteria, which is reducing or eliminating that need for that disability benefit at the end of the PASS. As far as the length of the PASS goes, it could be anywhere from a very short amount of time, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, to a very long time. We've had people on PASS plans for several years. It just depends what the goal is. There's a PASS cadre that has to approve each PASS plan, and she's, I want to say in Nebraska. So basically, it's a very long application. It is a time-consuming process, and that's why we have call WIPA, at the bottom of this slide, because we would love to help anybody who's interested in a PASS get the ball rolling there. We would assist someone in completing the application. Once the application was completed and everything looked good and everybody who was involved in the PASS plan was kind of on board with it, we would help submit that to the pass cadre. And once it was approved, that person could set aside a specific amount of money each month for that specific goal. And specific is kind of the word when it comes to pass plan. For example, if someone were saving for a car, you know, they could put the money for the monthly payment for a car, possibly title, license, you know, anything that goes with that vehicle, maintenance, you know, in that specific account. But that's all that account could be used for. So they couldn't draw that money out and go use it to buy something else, because it would be against the pass plan. So that could incur an overpayment situation. So everybody has to be on board when it comes to a pass, so that everybody understands how it works and how much money to set aside and what to use that money for. So if you guys have any questions about a pass plan, please reach out to us and we'd love to explain it further to you. Next slide, please. Another thing we hear a lot from people is Ticket to Work. Obviously, Ticket to Work is a great program. It connects beneficiaries with employment service providers called employment networks to achieve their work goals. It provides choice in obtaining services. It's free and voluntary. And if a person is making timely progress, they will not be subject to a disability review while their ticket is assigned to an employment network. So literally the benefit to the beneficiary is they get help finding and maintaining employment, because they're able to connect with that employment network, and they can shop around for an employment network and find one that works best for them. Once they find that employment network is going to help them find and maintain employment. And as long as they're earning enough money to constitute timely progress, which is first starting out working above the child work level and eventually substantial gainful activity level, then they don't have to go through that pesky continuing disability review. Once that, you know, they can continue on that program for several years, actually. The benefit to the employment network is that they get what we call a milestone payment from Social Security, because that beneficiary is achieving those goals. So it's free for the beneficiary. Like we put in the slide here, it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't hurt for someone to assign their ticket, and they can always unassign their ticket. One thing to note is that if somebody were to assign their ticket specifically for that protection from a continuing disability review, they have to be making timely progress. If they just want that protection and they're not making timely progress, then Social Security will still do the continuing disability review. So timely progress is important. And oftentimes we get people who are confused with Ticket to Work, the program, and Ticket to Work, the legislation. So Ticket to Work, there's no like golden ticket that comes in the mail that says that this person has to assign their ticket to an employment network. That Ticket to Work program is very specific. It's a partnership between the beneficiary and the employment network. Ticket to Work, the program, everybody who's receiving disability has the option to do Ticket to Work, the program. They don't have to assign anything. They don't have to fill out paperwork. It's everything that goes with it. It's WIPA, it's trial work period, extended period of eligibility, everything, all these work incentives. That's called Ticket to Work, the legislative process, you know, not Ticket to Work, the program. So if you hear Ticket to Work, usually what we're talking about is that beneficiary connecting with the employment network. Next slide, please. ABLE accounts. So I can't say enough good things about ABLE accounts. ABLE accounts are tax advantage savings accounts for eligible individuals with disabilities. It's just like a college savings plan for people with disabilities. And if someone gets an Iowa ABLE account, because someone does have the ability to assign or to open an ABLE account in a different state if they choose to, because it's an online banking system, then they get a tax deduction of $3,522 for 2022. That's a big tax deduction that someone can take. What it is they can contribute up to $16,000 per year, and it's not counted towards any needs-based programs. It's a way that someone can save past that pesky $2,000 asset limit and still keep their Medicaid and needs-based programs intact. It's a way to kind of break that circle of poverty. ABLE account will increase to $17,000 in 2023 or in 2023. And also if someone's working, they also get to contribute up to the federal poverty level of one person in contributions past that $16,000. So it's a great way that somebody can start saving and break that cycle of just staying under $2,000. And they don't have to constantly spend on things that they don't need to maintain that $2,000 asset limit. It does not protect the cash benefit. If someone were earning, let's say, $1,500 a month, that SSI check's still going to reduce. It just means that that $2,000 asset limit isn't going to matter so much because they'll have a way to submit money to their own ABLE account that's not counted towards those needs-based programs. In order for someone to have an ABLE account, they have to be diagnosed with a disability before the age of 26 and one of the following: eligible for SSI or SSDI because of a disability, experience blindness is determined by the Social Security Act, or have a similarly severe disability with a written diagnosis from a licensed physician that can be produced if requested. That's important because that means that someone can use self-attestation in order to qualify for this program. Let's say that they were on disability benefits at age 30, but they have diagnosis prior to that, and it just took them some time to get on disability benefits. They would then could qualify for an ABLE account. It's like I would guess I would equate it kind of like a special needs trust without having to have an attorney set it up. It's an online banking program. Someone could go to Iowa ABLE, they can sign up right from the website and they can start submitting money. They'll get a debit card that they can use so that they can draw those funds out when needed. But again, it has to be for quality of life expenses. Next slide, please. Some of these quality of life expenses that are included are basic living expenses, health and wellness, housing, financial management, transportation, education and training, assistive technology, legal fees. You can see it's a pretty big list. They just can't draw that money out and go buy a big screen TV, because once they do that, that's considered an asset. It's oversaw by the Internal Revenue Service and not by Social Security. So all that Social Security cares about is that it's an ABLE account and they don't want to hear any more about it. So it's it's a savings account for someone with a disability that wants to protect those needs-based benefits. Simple as that. They just have to be careful on what they draw that money out for. It's mostly used as a savings account. If someone uses it as a spending account, it can be kind of tricky. If anybody wants more information on ABLE account, they can go to the National ABLE Resource Center website. It has links for all of the different states so that someone can shop around for an ABLE account with from different states that work best for them. But again, if it's an Iowa resident, they're going to get that tax break. So that's a really good incentive that would help someone want to stay with an Iowa ABLE account. And the links for the Iowa accounts are right here in the Illinois as well. Again, it only protects the Medicaid and the needs-based programs. It still counts earnings towards SSI amounts. Next slide, please. So I know we threw kind of a lot of information at you very, very quickly today. So feel free to connect with us anytime you have any questions. We have our website up and running, and there's a way to connect with us on that. You can like us on Facebook. We're Iowa and Northwest Illinois WIPA. We also have a YouTube channel where we have some kind of basic YouTube videos that someone can look at, that goes over some of the benefits that we touched on today. Next slide, please. And of course, our contact info. Like Misty would always say, there's no wrong door to reach WIPA. It's just the three of us, and we work really well together. So literally, if you call any one of us, you'd be able to connect to all of us. So feel free to touch base with any one of us, and we'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. And I think that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you. Wow, great information. Lots of information. So yeah, I would encourage to not only just go back to our YouTube to listen to the info, but then go to their website to unpack what your needs are. I can't say enough about Tammy and her team that they will follow up with you, and they're a great, we've done some soft handoffs to them, and they're a great support to families. So families do take advantage of having this great resource. I did not have any questions, so that means you guys did an awesome job of explaining everything. Somebody just asked whether this was going to be available, and I think I answered that it will be on our YouTube. Again, sign up for our e-news, and then you will learn about our upcoming webinars. This is our last of our series for 2022, but 2023 we have others scheduled. And so again, just we're all here to support families. DRI, Tammy, her team, WIPA, we're all here to support families. So just pass the word along. If you know somebody that needs that kind of support, just let them know to access all of us, and we're here to help them. So thank you very much, ladies. You were a great support, and we had a great turnout for the day after the Thanksgiving break. That was awesome. Have a good
Thanks
day,
so much
everybody.
for having us.